Hey guys, Kuyo here, and today, as kind of a continuation of these ranty videos that I've been doing, I'm gonna do one for the Prey series, specifically on a topic that I find very interesting about Prey. Something that makes it different. Different in that the world of Prey is an alternate world to ours, and how everything in it is a result of just slight changes happening throughout history, or at least one very specific slight change that happened throughout history, or in history. And what I want to do today is explore that difference, explore how it came to be, and explore the theoretical kind of potential things around it. Though obviously there will be things that I mention that may not be completely cohesive simply due to the nature of how this video is being made, that is, that it's unscripted. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. Now, to kind of start this off, like I do with all my Elder Scrolls videos, and what I did with the last kind of theory video I made about Prey and Dishonored, all of this is off the top of my head, and the things that I do say, I will mention specifically as not being canon when it comes up, and we'll just say like, oh, this is what I think happened. Kind of in a similar vein to the Alternate History Hub channel on YouTube. But that said, let's get into what exactly is different about the Prey world or universe in the first place. And I think it's pretty obvious. First of all, they have aliens, like aliens that they know exist and have experimented on and have seen. On top of that, there's also the fact that Prey takes place in 2032, or 2033 maybe, I forget the exact one. But there's also the fact that Prey has had a crazy different past than what our world's past was like. And this kind of happened during the 1960s or 50s. And is, in my opinion, or at least from what I've seen, the main reason why everything is different. Like, why there's a mega corporation named TranStar, why there's this propagation of crazy amounts of advanced technology, and why exactly the Typhon were ever even properly studied. And that all comes down to the non-assassination of the US President, John F. Kennedy. Now, for those of you who have seen the promotional material for the game, you'll know what this is. But to sum it up, in short, when in our world John F. Kennedy was killed, a lot of things involving the space programs around our country, the US I mean, were very much slowed down and brought to a halt, since things like the moon landing had already happened. But in the case of the Prey universe, that never happened. See, John F. Kennedy survived his assassination, and in this universe, all that resulted in was a renewed effort into kind of dominating over Russia, which would kind of be transferred into this jump into space that was so massive at the time. But at the same time, the Prey universe also had another event that was responsible for its difference between our worlds. And that was the discovery of the Typhon, an alien organism on board a Russian satellite called Kletka. And what this would result in, alongside the non-assassination of JFK, would be the US not only coming to Russia's aid once they discovered the Typhon, which they actually approached the US about, but also kind of overpowering them as time went on and taking full control over the program. Now, I think I should note that the Russians did approach the US way before this, I think. You'll probably see it in the video I'm showing right now if they did. But after this non-assassination, the US kind of exerted lots of force over this whole entire program and did heavy amounts of work into the Typhon. But obviously, as we know from just the game existing, there was the initial breach, and that resulted in the program being shut down. What would happen from here would obviously be that TranStar, a mega corporation, would get a hold of everything, and they'd kind of convert this into a modern space station with the main focus being research on the Typhon, and the subsequent events of the game. So, with the kind of known results of the fictional world of Prey versus ours out of the way, I want to move on to a topic that I feel is the main point of this video, and that's the unknown results of this split. Now, obviously, this is just complete theoretical stuff, and just me conjecturing about potential changes that resulted from John F. Kennedy not being assassinated and the discovery of the Typhon before the actual events of the game. There are, in fact, some things that we know about the events before, but I want to focus more on government relations and the origin of things like TranStar, which I'll get into in just a second. So bear in mind that none of this is actually true, but just rather me exploring an alternate history that I feel is very interesting. So with that said, I think the biggest point I wanted to make was what exactly happened once the US became more like overbearing, specifically to Russia, because we know that Russia ended up providing a lot of volunteers, those are with big quotes, you can't see that, to the TranStar Corporation. And so that makes me wonder, why are there so many people that the Russian government, or at least something in Russia, is trying to give away? It honestly comes down to things like essentially human trafficking. And so for me, that's a very interesting thing that I think resulted from the fact that maybe Russia started taking kickbacks from large companies like TranStar. Because for all we know, the US, after kind of becoming this massive power, after taking over things like the space station with the Typhon, might have just really doomed Russia economically, which happened with the collapse of the Soviet Union in our world. Though I think in this case, it was much more intense, maybe. Though at the same time, they might have had a better plan B for that kind of situation. But on top of that, I think that despite the US potentially becoming a superpower due to its great amounts of exerted force, TranStar in and of itself is a massive anomaly. Now, TranStar is a mega corporation that covers multiple countries and has shadowy board members, the only ones that we know about being the Yu family. So, for TranStar to kind of exist in this world, well, there isn't very much, outside of Disney, organization existing in our world, really is something that I think stems from the timeline split. Or at least was the intention of the writers to add that as a timeline split, though it has its obvious reasons. And that being that I think that TranStar was really just the result of a need for something that happened when the US government kind of did this whole entire move and the capitalist society kind of grew and evolved. And in my opinion, TranStar was the culmination of this, a mega corporation that embodies the ideals of capitalism. Hence the reason why we see so many hard pushes in getting jobs done and getting products developed, especially with neuromods. On top of that, there's also the crazy amount of different potential things that happen in the world, especially from the beginning sequence that we see with Morgan involving him going to the TranStar Tower, which we see as like the entire city looking completely different, or at least much more technologically advanced, even though 2032 isn't really that far away. So maybe somewhere along the lines, this entire operation that the US government did may have just altered technology in such a way that everything advanced slightly faster. Though all of that said, what I think this means for the future of the Prey universe, and this is a massive spoiler which you can skip to this point if you don't want to hear, is that I feel that TranStar could play a massive part in a potential Prey 2. Not only in that it's potentially where a lot of neuromods were kept, which would create a link to the Typhon, but also where a lot of the rich people of the world would potentially go to for safety. And just for that reason, there's just so much more potential that TranStar has in this alternate universe and the fact that it even exists, that I really don't want to keep talking about it without, doing a little more research on it, which I really haven't done much of. But with that, I think I'm going to try and wrap up this video. Wrap it up in that I think that this entire split timeline thing has done so much for the plot of Prey, and so much for its world, and how different themes could be explored just because of the fact that it's an alternate history. And I feel that this is extremely important in creating the immersive sort of atmosphere and story that the writers of Prey did. And honestly, I think that it worked, and that they did this all successfully. And that whatever they lead to next, or whatever they want to make next with Prey, will do amazingly simply because of the fact that they made this background of an alternate history. So with that all said, if you liked the video, please leave a like. If you didn't like it, please leave a dislike, but tell me exactly why you disliked it. And if you really, really liked it, subscribe, because the only limiting factor right now is my college schedule, which eventually I will adapt to fully. So with that said, once again, thanks for watching, and never forget that it's all just a mind game. Kuyo out.